Zarathustra, Prologue 4. And I want to see if you guys can hang on for this one. Clearly, most people can't hang on, but I promise you, there is amazing surfing in this tape. And if you hang on, you don't have to listen to the philosophy. You can just watch the surfing. It's all in slow-mo. This time I've done something a little bit different, which is I know what footage is going to this part of the project. Before, I was just doing the philosophy and then pulling up various surf sessions, putting them in slow-mo, and mapping the philosophy on top of that, with no real attention to making sure that exactly what I was saying was lining up with anything that was happening on the screen. What I'm doing is really just putting what I'm doing is finding trips, sessions that I maybe posted at some point in time, but never really used to their full potential, and bringing those up. I'm mostly picking sessions 2022 and after, even though I have a 10-year plus deep archive. And that's because 2022 is the start of my own fitness journey, and I prefer looking at the footage of myself after my fitness journey than I do before, for two main reasons. One, the surfing is better, and two, I enjoy looking at my physicality more. This is a part of self-overcoming that is totally within the grasp of any human being. And some people are perfectly fine with how they look in video and don't need to make any changes. Others of us, myself, I really speak for, I have standards and ideas of what is possible for myself. And when I don't meet those, it's frustrating. And so I just keep endeavoring to find the information. So it is a search for wisdom that is going to help me do those things better. The footage that I'm speaking over right now is from December 9th, 2022. I'm about 6 months, June, July, August, September, October, November. Yeah, 6 months into my fitness journey. I've lost 15 pounds and really feeling the spark in my surfing a little bit more. The day started off in Long Beach. You saw me run down with the pink board and the yellow fish. Started on the pink board, and always that was just too much board for me. Had much more fun on the fish. Higher tide that morning. Rockaway was undergoing crazy beach construction. So this is Long Beach, New York. The waves stay open more, they peel more, and at the same time, they can be a little bit less intense. The footage that you'll see as I go deeper into the commentary and text is Rockaway the same day. So today's footage is all 1 day of surfing. It's filmed by MG Bruno in New York in December 2022. December is a transitional time of year for us in New York. The weather is getting colder, but the water is still warm. You do need to start wearing a winter suit just for the wind and the weather. The water is probably more like California temps, 55, 58, high 50s, sometimes even low 60s, but that wind can just be so brutal. I hate wearing booties, and so I'm either wearing no booties at all, or I go straight to the thickest setting of booties, which is 7 mil. I use these 7 mil booties made by AXXE, A-X-X-E, Japanese company. They feel like surfing on a cloud, for better and for worse. They keep your feet really warm and really dry, but they are a lot of cushion too. Still, keep your feet warm, and that's why, for me, you wear booties. I don't wear booties for traction or for protecting my feet against reefs. If I can get away with feeling my feet on the surfboard, that's what I prefer. Mittens and gloves. I will wear gloves, 5-finger gloves, but only if they're like 1.5 millimeter. Once and I think that's what I'm wearing in the last session of the day. I might be wrong. I might just be wearing my mittens again. Otherwise, I'm wearing 7mm mittens. Same idea. I do not like gloves and mittens, so I'm either wearing the thinnest one possible or the thickest one possible. In between is just, honestly, uncomfortable, cold, and a waste of time and material. Okay, so that sets up the footage that you're looking at, and now I'm going to get into the text, but I'm going to do this a little bit differently. I'm not going to read out the whole passage this time. I'm going to read parts of the passage, give a little description, and then finish the section that way. Here we go. Airplane. It's crazy. There's a storm right now, and I don't even know how these planes are flying or landing, but they find a way here. But Zarathustra looked at the people and marveled. So remember, he is down in the market square. The tightrope walker is actually, we can imagine him already doing his thing behind Zarathustra because the tightrope walker set to work. Zarathustra has come down from the mountain, past the saint in the forest. He's at the nearest town, and there are people gathered in the market square to see the tightrope walker, and he has said, I teach you the Superman. That's where we left off last time. And he says, now, man is a rope fastened between animal and Superman, a rope over an abyss, a dangerous going across, a dangerous wayfaring, a dangerous looking back, a dangerous shuddering and staying still. What is great in man is that he is a bridge and not a goal. What can be loved in man is that he is a going across and a down going. I'm going to stop there, because after this comes a whole litany of all of the people or the kinds of people whom Zarathustra loves. But I wanted to focus a little bit here now on this concept that man is a rope fastened between animal and Superman, a rope over an abyss. A dangerous going across, a dangerous wayfaring, a dangerous looking back. It is far too easy for us to think of this in a basic evolutionary theory term, that we start as animals, we become men, and then like the next evolutionary process is that we become Supermen. That's not what Nietzsche is talking about. Even though he has been influenced by Darwinian theory, and that is part of proclaiming God's death, it does not mean and should not be thought of that evolution equals progress. That's not his point. So when he writes that what is great in man is that he is a bridge and not a goal, that means that we are not perfected or perfectible, that we're not this straightforward trajectory coming out of the animal kingdom where they are just so much lower than us, and our great achievement is not becoming animals again, and then our next achievement is going to be transcending our humanity. That's not what Nietzsche is talking about. So the stretching of man from animal to Superman is that we are these intermediary creatures, that we're always negotiating this weird place that we seem to hold, where we are animals, we come from animals, there is a process of evolution, but it is not like a straightforward arrow towards a location that we will one day arrive at. It's a down going, it's a going across, and the rope is stretched over the abyss. What is the abyss? The abyss is nihilism. The abyss is a place where the highest values devalue themselves. So it's that place when you're trying to understand what code of honor you're going to live by, and you don't know how that is grounded. Where are all your values coming from? If formerly they came from a metaphysics that has a God who sent his son down to save everybody's life because everybody is in this fallen, guilty state that needs to be redeemed, and if you just do X, Y, Z, then you will be redeemed and go to this fantastical place that's not on earth. Nietzsche's like, that's not cutting it anymore in terms of giving one's life meaning. He sees that there are people who still adopt that narrative, but he also sees that there's enough afforded to us in terms of available knowledge that blows that out of the water. So we can't just accept that as our metaphysics anymore. There is a danger in God being dead, which is that we can't accept that as our metaphysics anymore. And it means that we have to do the very hard work of accepting nihilism, accepting that that is a possibility for our existence, going into the abyss, and then we have to get out of there. In order to overcome, we have to overcome nihilism. And overcoming nihilism is a big part of the project of becoming the Superman. So anybody who thinks that Nietzsche is a nihilistic philosopher, you're right and you're wrong. What you're right about is that he toiled with nihilism. He became a nihilist. But the overcoming is overcoming nihilism. It is reevaluating systems of values and giving oneself and one's life value despite the fact that the abyss is always a possibility. Now, what is the relationship between the abyss and the sea? This is really important. And I think a little pause at this part in the video, maybe we're starting to see some of the Rockaway footage. Just a note, there was a ton of beach construction this year, and they dumped all this sand on the break that I'm surfing, 62nd Street. It's never looked like this ever again. And when I'm walking out, when I do the runaround, you'll see it's like ankle deep. It was a total slab. It lasted for a couple of weeks. That's how fast our sandbars come and go here. I've never seen it like that before, and I've never seen it like that again. It was super low tide during the session, and the whole trick was to, get under the lip on the ones, they were all closeouts essentially, on the ones that would stay open just long enough. Okay, so here we are back at reevaluate the abyss and the sea. There's a lot that the abyss and the sea have in common, in the sense that we imagine them dark and deep and fathomless and scary, and like we can't get our orientations there. That they are devouring and they make us feel helpless. But the difference between the abyss and the sea, when I think of the abyss, I think of just nothing, just a radical nothing. And the sea is not that. The sea is a radical something. And so I view going into the sea is actually something supremely value-giving. I don't view it, there's obviously a nihilistic way one could go into the sea. One could say, one can commit suicide in the sea. The sea is so powerful. You could jump into the sea not knowing how to swim and drown immediately because you think your life has no meaning. And that would be to give in to the abyss. And that would be to equate the abyss and the sea in that very act. But the sea is not inherently the abyss. For us surfers, the sea and the act of going into the sea and learning to surf and finding good waves and learning how to enter them and learning how to go across is the supreme act of meaning in the life of a surfer. I want to be careful here, though, because as great as surfing is and as meaning-giving as it can be, it has not always succeeded and does not always succeed at defeating nihilism. There are plenty of surfers who have met early ends, and surfing could just not provide enough meaning in their life, enough value in their life for them to keep going. And they were the best at surfing that surfing has ever seen. Andy Irons had a drug addiction. That drug addiction was nihilism. There was something about his life that was so intolerable that he had to blot out his pain in existing that he could not find a transcendent source of meaning. And that doesn't take away from how great of a surfer that he was and continues to be on all of the videos that we watch him. But surfing was not enough for Andy Irons. Okay? So the sea can provide us, and our act of going into the sea again and again can provide us with the kind of meaning that it takes for us to overcome ourselves, but it doesn't do so inherently. There's something that must be added on top, and that additional thing is the philosophical, self-scouring kind of work that people who overcome do. Let's look at the next part of the text. I love those who do not know how to live except their lives be a down-going, for they are those who are going across. I love the great despisers, for they are the great venerators and arrows of longing for the other bank. I love those who do not first seek beyond the stars for reasons to go down and to be sacrifices, but who sacrifice themselves to the earth, that the earth may one day belong to the Superman. I love him who lives for knowledge and who wants knowledge that one day the Superman may live, and thus he wills his own downfall. I love him who works and invents that he may build a house for the Superman and prepare the earth, animals, and plants for him, for thus he wills his own downfall. Okay, this can be confusing. It sounds like Nietzsche is talking about somebody who is going to commit suicide or go into the abyss so much so that, like, they will their own downfall. But it's not quite right. The great despisers, they're the ones who look at themselves and are just not satisfied. They are the great venerators and arrows of longing for the other bank. They know there's a better way, but you have to hit rock bottom. The scary thing is going to rock bottom, doing the despising, having contempt for oneself, and being able to get up from there. That's why it is so dangerous. That's what's so dangerous about this work of scouring oneself and looking at one's motivations and still trying to find meaning. I love him who lives for knowledge and wants knowledge that one day the Superman may live. There is the meaning making within the nihilism, is the knowledge. In order for one to overcome oneself, the scouring is to find the knowledge, and that's positive. I love him who loves his virtue, for virtue is a will to downfall and an arrow of longing. I love him who keeps back no drop of spirit for himself, but wants to be the spirit of his virtue entirely, thus he steps as spirit over the bridge. I love him who makes a predilection and a fate of his virtue, thus for his virtue's sake he will live or not live. I love him who does not want too many virtues. One virtue is more than two, because it is more of a knot for fate to cling to. I love him whose soul is lavish, who neither wants nor returns thanks, for he always gives and will not preserve himself. I love him who is ashamed when the dice fall in his favor, and who then asks, Am I then a cheat? For he wants to perish. I love him who throws golden words in advance of his deeds, and always performs more than he promised, for he wills his own downfall. I love him who justifies the men of the future and redeems the men of the past, for he wants to perish by the men of the present. Okay, that's a lot. But the point here is that when one goes down and reaches this dark night of the soul, one sees how much one really has to give. And if the only virtue is just this self-scouring, that is the virtue upon which all of the other magnanimous qualities of character can overflow. But it is really dangerous to go there. It's really dangerous to contemplate how potentially meaningless everything is. Okay? But if you can overcome that, you can become full with gifts for other people, because you're strong enough to combat your own nihilism. I love him who chastises his God because he loves his God, for he must perish by the anger of his God. I love him whose soul is deep, even in its ability to be wounded, and whom even a little thing can destroy. Thus he is glad to go over the bridge. Vulnerability. It pays to be vulnerable. To go into the void is to open yourself up to feelings you may not want to have. I love him whose soul is overfull, so that he forgets himself and all things are in him. Thus all things become his downfall. I love him who is of a free spirit and a free heart. Thus his head is only in the bowels of his heart, but his heart drives him to his downfall. I love all those who are like heavy drops falling singly from the dark cloud and hangs over mankind. The prophecy, the coming of the lightning, and as prophets they perish. Behold, I am a prophet of the lightning and a heavy drop from the cloud, but this lightning is called Superman. Can't express all of Nietzsche's thought in the last 3 minutes of this video. One thing that we should be clear about is that this text is superfluous. It is overflowing itself in its writing. So that's an important thing. I'm taking it out of the context of Nietzsche's entire oeuvre, but in the course of this project, I will bring things from other parts of Nietzsche's work to explain what he is talking about. In this video, the main thing I want to get across is how important the vulnerability is of facing one's own nihilistic tendencies. And that in this scientific age, in this age where we know evolution is real, but does not mean progress, there's still a capacity and a possibility for us to transcend our lowest desires. And our lowest desires are the desires that make us believe that life doesn't have meaning. And where are we going to get the sense of that meaning now that we can no longer believe in an extraterrestrial God? That is the work. That's the work that we're doing here. That's the work that I hope to be doing with you together. And I help people overcome what they don't like in their own surfing. I'm constantly overcoming what I don't like in my own surfing, and I might not overcome it completely, but that doesn't mean that the work itself doesn't have meaning. And part of the meaning is to continue to create this work, to continue to do this work, because surfing is a terrestrial practice. It's a practice we do here on Earth in the ocean that itself is not redemptive qua just doing the act. But there is and are ways of surfing and understanding surfing that are better than others. And that's what we're here to discuss. That's what this channel is for. Thank you so much for being here. Make sure that you support me by subscribing to my Philo-surfy zine. And if you're already a supporter, thank you. Comment. Let's get this going. I want people to be engaged with this material, and I will see you next week. And I'm going to comment on the next part of the prologue. Might riff a little bit more in different ways. I might combine sections together, provide more historical background. Let me know if there's anything that you want me to cover in the comments. And again, I'm glad that we're here doing this work together. I'll see you later.